let's get started. So, one thing I want to show you really quick too, when you saw before the code caving, taking a legitimate executable and backdooring it, there's a couple commands you can piggyback. I just want to show you. So you do MSF payload, Windows, interpreter, bind TCP, do lport. You can do MSF encode multiple times. So you can do MSF encode. Let's just do encoder x86. We'll do. Let's do alpha upper. Do count 2. And then we'll pipe it again. We'll do X. We're going to take ping.exe, output it as payload. Do 10. So you can see here, we actually take a normal, MSF payload interpreter. We encode it via alpha numeric, alpha upper, which strips out a lot of character tags in it. And then what we do again is we then encode it again with Chicago guy next. So you can actually stack encoding on top of each other for better antivirus evasion if you want to. It doesn't really make a difference.
How does that affect the file size?
You can see here it's 6,300 bytes. So it does definitely affect the file size. But Chicago is a very lightweight. And I don't know if this was explained before, but Chicago is polymorphic, which is why antivirus vendors have such a tough time finding it. So what ends up happening is every single time you create that executable, it's different. So every single time it's going to be completely obfuscated in a way that's polymorphic. It changes every single time. So what you can do is you can, if it gets hit by one of the antivirus vendors out there, you can just re-encode it again and it might get past that time. Or you can do multi-encoding, which makes it much more difficult for it to detect. But just so you know, you can do multiple encoding options if you want to actually go through and do it. Now, hey, Martin.
Yeah.
What's the one that has the SQL Server on it?
Oh, I just rebooted it, so you got to wait a second, but it's 128.
So on 128, there's a SQL Server involved, and I just wanted to show you something really quick with MSF console. One of the modules that I wrote for it, for Metasploit, there's this thing called MS SQL Payload. And I don't know if you know, but when you install Microsoft SQL Server, there's 2 modes that you can install it with, or 3. You can install it with Windows authentication, mixed authentication, and SQL Server authentication, right? And if you do mixed or SQL Server, it prompts you to say, hey, you have to create an SA account, a Systems Administrator account for SQL. So what ends up happening with that is when you create that password, a lot of times when administrators are installing it, they don't really think of a complex password, right? They put a password or your company name or, SA is always a good one. Iron Geek, whatever it is, But it could be any of those. Generally, they're pretty easy to get. And what's interesting about this is most corporations have a ton of SQL servers. Tons. I mean, they're just everywhere. Sometimes they get installed with MSDE on some application that they're installing, so some client workstations will have it. If you think your users are putting complex passwords in there, ooh. But it's a very good attack vector. What I'm about to show you is when you can guess the SA account, the Systems Administrator account, it gives you full rights over SQL, right? So now we're running as a Systems Administrator over SQL. Well, what does that really do us if we want to pop a box? Well, luckily, Microsoft graced us with what they call the XP command shell store procedure. And if you can guess what that is, you can actually execute underlying operating system commands. Well, unfortunately, they actually got, they got pretty good with it, and they said, okay, well, in Server 2005 and Server 2008, we're by default, in Server 2010, I think, right? We're by default going to disable the XP command shell store procedure. However, if you're running as SA, you can re-enable within SQL anyway, So once you have access to the XP command shell store procedure, what does it really give you? It gives you access to execute commands on an underlying operating system, maybe add yourself an administrator. And generally, what's SQL running as? System. It's running as an admin. So one thing we did when this is a Derbycon 16 talk, and what we ended up doing is we figured out a way to take an executable, so a Metasploit payload, right, a backdoor, so an interpreter. And what we did was we take this payload and we convert it into hex. And so it's just this big text file of hexadecimal equations, right? What we do from there is we echo the hex back onto the underlying operating system through SQL. So you get this big text file of hex on your underlying operating system, right? So it's just a big text file. Well, Windows graced us with this application called Windows Debug. And with Windows Debug, you can basically take that hex as long as it's formatted properly, and then convert it back to a binary for us. So we basically have a reliable method of getting any file we want to on the system if we want to. But, again, we can only work with 64 kilobytes because Windows Debug's restriction is 64 kilobytes. So what we did was we wrote a 5 kilobyte file that was basically Windows Debug without the restrictions. And then so we convert that first, and then we send the rest of our payload over without the restrictions, so it can be as big as you need to. So that was kind of interesting. But I wanted to show you these modules. It's pretty slick. So if you do a search for MS SQL, you see there's a couple ones. We're going to do the MS SQL ping first. So we're going to use scanner /MS SQL/MS SQL ping. We can do show options. Now, one thing that's interesting enough too is with SQL Server 2005 and 2008, it uses dynamic port allocation. Okay, so you can either specify it on its default port, which is 1433, or you can specify a random dynamic port. So 53,000, whatever. Well, how are you going to find that port? What's that? What I'm saying? SQL what?
Ping.
SQL ping. Well, right, but how does it work?
There's like a listener for the SQL server that's good where all the instances are on
The UDP listener browser, right? Browser
So,
service.
right. So what ends up happening is if you move it from 1433, it's on some dynamic crazy port. There's also port 1434 UDP, which says, oh, hey, I'm a SQL server. And by the way, it's on port 53,722 if you need it. And by the way, it's this version of SQL Server. And here's the name of it. So just in case you needed all that information, just so you know, it's there. So, so we're going to go ahead and we're going to run the SQL ping tool. So we're going to set our hosts. I want to send me my range that you guys don't have access to.
Actually, it'll give you a list of all the SQL servers
Not necessarily.
on it.
Not Server 2005 and 2008. Yeah, the SQL recon discovery method that they use from the older tools would actually broadcast where all of them are at.
Yeah.
You can technically query other SQL servers as long as you know their IP address, but you can't do it directly and list all of them.
Okay. But you can still get all the instances on that particular.
Absolutely, yeah, all the instances are shown for sure. So we're going to exploit right. Let me see something here. So we're going to exploit. I'm sending up some. I have 300 threads. You can see here we have two SQL servers. One on 172.16.32.131, and one on 172.16.32.128. So those two methods. So now we know that there's SQL servers running on both port 1433. And you can see the name of the computer. And you can see, the specific, instances of SQL on there, port 1433, what version it's running, etc. Right? So we have those. So we're going to go ahead and brute force that. So there's another scanner called MS SQL login. And we're going to set our brute force speed to 20. We'll set our host, same notation. And we're going to set our pass file to a file within Fasttrack, which I'll show you guys in a second. And we're going to set our username and SA, which is default. We're going to exploit that. Oh, let me change my threads. And my MSN console. One second here. And we're going to exploit that, and hopefully it goes through and finds a SQL search for us. Actually, we'll just target one, since it'll actually go through and try each individual one. So do 32.131. So one kind of thing that kind of stinks about this is it doesn't give you a summarization of what the actual password is afterwards. But it'll go through and try all its passwords. And it takes a while, so we'll but you can see if you were going through it, you'd actually see the actual password, which is password 1. So once we have the password, which would brute force, and again, you can use this mask around your entire subnet. We'll show you it gets a lot easier with Fasttrack. But there's this tool, there's this module that I added called useadmin/msql/msql payload. That's actually in Windows server. So use Windows/msql/msql_payload. What this is going to do is it's going to do that same thing I talked about, that hex to binary conversion. So set whatever payload you want to. And we're going to set our IP address. And we're attacking 172.16.32.131. So we have everything set up here. We got to set our password. So we'll set password. I think it's password 1. It's on here in a second. And we're going to exploit it. So we've got SQL credentials. So we go and exploit it. And right now what it's doing is it's sending our initial stager payload, that Windows debug that's bypassed. And then it's going to send the rest of our payload through MS-SQL. Again, it's doing all of it through hex conversion. So it sends a hex system on there, converts it back to binary, and then it actually executes it. All through MS-SQL, now we're full access. And we're running as system at that point. So full access. Any questions on that? All right, so Fasttrack. Anybody here use Fasttrack before? Yeah, that's good. Got a few. So Fasttrack's got a few different interfaces. It's got command line mode, it's got interactive mode, and it's got the web GUI mode. Web GUI mode is just a web interface that kind of handles everything and does everything on the back end. We'll go ahead and use interactive mode since that's what we're most comfortable with. We're going to go ahead in this instance go for the Microsoft SQL tools. And we're going to go through the MS-SQL router, which is the exact same thing we did before, right? We're doing the exact same attack. We're going to attempt a SQL ping. We're going after the SA account. And we're going after 172.16.32.131. And this is where, if you wanted to perform advanced identification, it would go through and look for port 1334 and try to find the SQL servers and then enumerate based off of that. In this instance, it's just going to use mmap to discover it. So we found a SQL server. It's going to go ahead and brute force it. You see here it compromised this SQL server, this username, and this password. Now, if you had, say, 70 SQL servers, it would show all 70 of them there, and you can interact with whatever one you want to. So in this instance, we'll just use one. And we're going to do a interpreter console. And if you notice what it'll do, too, is it'll automatically re-enable the XP command shell just in case it's disabled for you. Don't want our payload being stopped. So it's going through and doing our crazy hex conversions right now, getting our initial stager on there, and automatically going to compromise it for us. So it all handles it through you, and again, all through MS-SQL itself, which is pretty nice. Just give it a second here to run while I drink some water. Fortunately, it's not the fastest, but it does work. So we converted our initial stager. Now this is our actual payload itself. And it's executing. And now we got our full command shell on the other end. All through MS. Fantastic. That sucks. Alright, so now we're done with that. What I want to show you through Fasttrack is my favorite one, which is what we call SQL ownage. And that would be under Microsoft SQL Tools and SQL ownage. Now, what this does, so everybody knows what SQL injection is, right? Right? I don't have to explain SQL injection right now. So we're piggybacking SQL commands on a, not sanitized or not using a stored procedure or, not properly configuring our SQL servers type connection, right? So we're actually executing back-end commands on the SQL server. So conceptually thinking about this, if you have, you're doing a pen test on the outside on the internet, and you have a website, it's got SQL injection on it. You find SQL injection, you start exploiting it. Where are you actually executing the commands at? On the SQL server. And where are most of our SQL servers at? DMZ. Yeah, right. How many people in the company put their SQL servers in DMZ? Alrighty then. So that was traditional. I mean, traditionally we are taught to put our SQL servers on our internal network because they'll be more protected there. Unfortunately, if I'm going after a website, what are the majority attack vectors going to be against that website that's going to compromise it? SQL injection. So we're not actually compromising the web front end, which is protecting us. We're actually compromising our SQL servers on the underlying operating system and fully compromising that machine inside your internal network, which gives us full access to your internal network, which is always great. So what SQL bonus does is it will go through and it will scan a class C or whatever you want to. It'll look for web servers. When it finds a web server, it'll automatically try to enumerate that web server, so it starts crawling it. Once it starts crawling it, it looks for any type of post parameter or query string parameter that it can find. And it starts fuzzing it. Fuzzing is not necessarily the right term, but it's essentially what it's doing. It's trying different combinations in order to identify if SQL injection is there. It does both error-based SQL injection and blind-based SQL injection. Blind takes a much longer time, obviously, but if you're doing error-based SQL injection, it's always good. And once it finds a SQL injection, it tries a couple of things. One is it re-enables XP command shells for procedure for us, just in case. It tries to elevate our permissions to SA. And then it does the exact same task you just saw that through MS SQL, all through the website, on the back-end MS SQL server, and gives you full access to that underlying operating system, which is great. So let's check it out. We're just going to go ahead to URL. You can scan the subnet if you wanted to. And we're going to go after 172.16.32.131. So it detected detected two forms. It found that a SQL exception has been encountered in the text login input field, which means that the text login field of post parameter is susceptible to SQL injection. So at this point, we're going to do a maternal boot console. When I made this, I wanted to make it look like really cool. So everything you see there, it's actually, as it's going through, it looks pretty slick. So watch that. So it's going to go through. It's going to take our initial stager payload, convert to hex for us, and then send the payload through the website. Now it does it in 9 different chunks. And the reason I had to chunk it is because what happens if you're using a GET request? GET request is limited to a specific amount of bytes per GET request. So instead what I did was I just chunked it up based off of whether it's a post or a GET. And it splits it into parts to get it to the underlying operating system. So this takes a little bit to do the initial bypass payload. But you can see here it's sending it in 9 different chunks. Turns out depth just in case too, just to make sure that we don't have any problems there. Should have made it faster, not good for demos. So it converts it, and then what it does is it takes the interpreter payload, converts it to hex, splits it into 100 byte chunks, and then again puts it back onto the underlying operating system. So this one just happens to take 2 of 8. It does it dynamically, so if it happens to be a bigger payload, whatever you want it to be, you can import your own. it doesn't matter. It'll just start doing it in different chunks. By the way, all of these attacks that we're using here are available if you go to the Metasploit Unleashed website. It shows you how to create a vulnerable web application, and this web application is vulnerable to the specific attacks. So it's sent in the different chunks. A.8. Go ahead and executes it after it's unconverting, and we have a interpreter shell. So now we're sitting on our internal network, all nice and cozy, with Interpreter. So always nice stuff. Any questions on this? Scared? So that's that. There's the auto and automation. I typically don't use that too much. If you don't want to remember all the commands for DB create stuff like that, you can just run the auto own stuff. Just enter an IP in, it does all the stuff for you and launches the exploits off of it. It's kind of it's like 4 lines of code. There's the mass client attack, which is similar to, if you're familiar with the browser auto own Metasploit, it generally does the same thing. So from a browser auto own perspective, as soon as you browse the website, it launches like a bazillion exploits at you. Same thing for this. This one, it uses a combination of what's built into Metasploit, as well as like Internet Explorer bugs that I found and published. They're also custom compiled in there as well. So as soon as you go to the website, enter your IP address you're listening on. So I'm 129. I don't typically recommend this route. I mean, it's like firing a bazooka at something you can really just use like a knife.
It's more like too much counter-strike.
It goes through and loads everything in a Metasploit for you, and it loads everything on the back end, and all you have to do is just browse it. And right now, this person is not going to be happy, because on the back end, it's running a ton of exploits. You can see here it's just firing off exploit after exploit. Oh, man. That's close. So it's going through, it's continuing, and if you look, this machine's probably not going to be too happy right now because it's doing a bunch of keep exploits. So if we look here. Oh, perfect timing. So it's not going so good from as far as my performance goes. There we go. So it's spiking up and down, spiking up and down. Now, the reason it's spiking and you don't see the actual memory usage going is because it hasn't triggered on a specific exploit, so it hasn't filled the heap yet. But this will literally go on forever. Look here, I had no session, so, I mean, it didn't go so good. But it generally does work. Any questions on that? No? Good. Now, on the exploit side of things, it also has exploits built into it. So ones that weren't necessarily in Metasploit, we'll actually go through, and there's a few different ones in there that weren't necessarily put in Metasploit, or ones that I wrote and published that are in there as well. You can always use them as a direct exploit method as well. That's pretty much it from a Fasttrack perspective. So does anybody have any questions? Any questions at all? No? I appreciate it. Well, you can always go to secmaniac.com. I actually did some tutorials. So basically, some tutorials online that you can use that are voices. I can voice over it so you can hear my voice the entire time. And then you can also email me at davek@socialdeskengineer.org or follow me on Twitter, which is Dave_Rel1k with a 1. So you can always ask a question. I think a lot of people here already have. So you'd be more than willing to send me any type of bug fixes or feature requests or things like that. And generally put it in pretty quickly from there. But appreciate your time, guys. Thanks.
is now blind.
Well, I believe that about wraps up today's presentations. We're going to be around for probably the next 30 minutes, then we got to break down. So feel free to bang on the boxes as much as you want for the next 30 minutes. Thereafter, I think some of us are going to Richo's in New Albany, and then we'll hang out some. Hopefully, did anybody have a good time at the event? Thanks again to all of our speakers. Dave, Elliot, Cycle, and Martin back there. Oh, and yeah, me. Thanks again to our sponsors, the ISSA, Kentuckiana, and also Tipping Point. And thanks to all the people in the ISSA committees that help actually organize all this. And to Johnny Long for having the charity, and HD Moore for Backtrack. Sorry, for I have a lot of things. It's been a long day for me. For Metasploit, and to Mutz and the entire Backtrack 14 for Backtrack. Is that better? Backtrack. Apparently Mutz isn't actually someone when you say Backtrack 3 times in a row. But that's all I have. Thank you very much for attending. Have a lovely evening.